I think of the life of a miner who must work all his day underground, where his lamplight is all that will shine there, and it's dark and it's damp all around. It is 2 or 3 miles to the coal face, and the tunnel is jagged and low, but he cannot find work on the surface, so it's down in the mines he must go.
And you're very welcome back to the Original Mining Experience, where we're continuing on with our series of interviews with former miners. Well, indeed, a number of the interviews that we have conducted so far, the name of Mickey Cassidy would have come up on regular occasions. Well, his son Micheal, who also worked in the Original Mines, joins us this evening, and we're going to have a chat about the Cassidy involvement in mining over a long number of years. Micheal, you're very welcome. We were talking before we started recording. You started working in Campbell's in Drumshanbo, which became D.H. Burke's, I think, after that, and is now Scollins's. That was for a while, but very soon, like so many other young men in the area, you headed to the mines in Arigna.
I started in Pliny, John, in 1971. And I was in there for a couple of years, and I left there and I went to Durnabuggy, to the Leightons.
Right.
And I left there after a few years, and I done a job on the Miners' Walk.
Uh-huh.
And I was at the building of the Miners' Cottage down the road there. And I went driving for D.H. Burke's for 11 years.
So you've had a varied career in it, and if I can take you back to the very start, and one of the things that I find fascinating about these interviews is the interviews that took place. And you were telling me it was a kind of an interview where you asked for a job, but clearance had to be got from your dad before you started.
That's correct. I asked Mick Flynn, called him Mick John Joe, for a job, and he said, leave it with me until tomorrow. And I came home and I said not to get home. But my father was at work that day, and he came home and he says, Mick Flynn, how are you? You can start in the morning. He said, you didn't tell me you were looking for a job in the pit. And he says, I told him, let's chat it.
Right.
I started the first day I went into the pit, I was put watching a pump.
Right.
And after that I was put there on. And after 2 years, myself and Terence Cullion took on the brushing as piecework. Brushing, the rock. And we had we were on very well. I enjoyed it while I was in it. I'm sure there was nothing else at the time for a young fellow. He wasn't going to go to school, and that was it. So
it was the only show in town, as the saying goes. And the fact that your father was a miner, and dare I say it, a hugely popular miner as well, because he had this reputation that we've heard in the interviews for young lads starting off. He was the man that looked after them. He took them under their wing. He made sure they got used to the workings of the mines. And how big of a help was it for you having your late dad there working in the mines with you when you started?
he gave you every bit of advice he could for safety for a start. And he'd let you go ahead, and if he seen you doing something wrong, he'd check on you and tell you that don't go that way, you go this way. And he'd done the same with every young fella. He was a very good, not because he's my dad, but he was a very good experienced miner. He had a full experience of the whole lot. Micheal Leighton was an engineer of the mines at the time. And when he'd go to do an engineering thing in the mines, he always brought my father with him, because he understood the thing.
Yeah.
And if the rope was going to go for pulling the hutches out to the hill and all that, and the rock, and my father could splice the rope. What not many men could do at the time, but he could do it.
And you were telling me a story as well towards the end of his career when he had retired. They came for him to come back in for a while.
Mick Flynn brought him back in again for a while, and he went back there. I remember one time he got a pain in his back and he couldn't walk, he was crawling. And he had a red Bedford van, belonged to Mick Flynn at the time. And he crawled into the van and went up to the pit, and the boys put him into a hutch and wheeled him into the pit to cut the run.
My God. And he was under that much pain that they had to wheel him in with the hutch to go cutting.
He couldn't walk, he was in that bit of a pain. And there was a woman at the time below, between Mount Allen and Drunkieran. on the Barra Road. She was a Mrs. Burton, and she had the cure of the pain at the back. And he went down as he heard about her, and he went down as far as her. She brought him in, and she put the cat and dog out, and she put him lying on a trapdoor on the floor, and she walked across his back.
Nice.
And he never had a pain in his back after.
And it worked.
The day he passed away.
That time people had such huge belief in cures, and I remember as well, not far away from here, out at Losser Well, where the stone
Out under
table
the stone, yes.
and people could do the sign of the cross underneath that as well. Was that something that your dad ever tried to see with us?
Oh, you crawled in under it, but
Yeah,
it just didn't work, and that was just it, like.
right. But once he got the cure made with this woman,
And he got this cure of this woman. She walked across his back. He was on his mouth and nose on the floor, and she walked across his back.
yeah,
And she's passed away since too, the poor thing, but
right.
she had a great cure.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
a brilliant cure to have. That time in the mines when you would have started, and definitely in your dad's time, say on building sites and any industrial projects now, there's so many health and safety officers and everything like that.
Oh,
But
it's different now.
it's different now. But there was so much craft involved. Now, when we're standing at the minute here in the mining experience and the road got into the pit itself, there would have been an awful lot more small seeding when you went further in, and you can imagine the way that they were propped up, and each miner had to take responsibility for that. And it was learning from people like your dad that very much, once they learned well from him, that kind of guaranteed their safety for their working time in the mines.
Oh, yes, because it was only about that height, the branch, and the road itself was only the width of a hutch.
Yeah.
So the hutch was only about that wide, so that was it, like.
Yeah.
You were in confined ground, like.
Any near misses, any close calls to accidents during your time in the mines?
No. I was lucky enough that way, like. And I had uncles in Micheal and Vincey Gilray, and they were good men too that worked in it as well, like.
Yeah. And they knew the ins and outs of it. You were telling us as the career moved on, yourself and Terence were involved in the brushing.
Yes.
And what other jobs did you do, Micheal, throughout your time in the mines?
Well, I was drawing first before I done the brushing, and that was it, like. You know, that there was men for cutting, shuffling coal, and other men, dads for drawing it out, and the brushing was a job in itself. It was piecework. They got paid by the yard.
Yes.
That's how it was done.
Right. And was it all kind of day shift work that you were doing?
Well, you might have to go back an odd evening to do.
Yeah.
If there was a road that wasn't clean fairly early and it would fire shots, so you'd have to go, you couldn't go back until the reek was gone, like, you know.
Yeah. From the mid-1980s and maybe even before that, there was always going to be a lot of doubt about the future of the mines. What was that like in the area at the time, say, for people that would have had young families and were dependent on the income that was coming in from it? Must have been a very uncertain time.
Well, it was, because the whole valley was dependent. It was nearly every household there was a man working in the mines that time, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it went on for nearly 300 years, like, it was a long time, like, you know what I mean? So, suppose, like, everyone thought first there was going to be a shock and all that, like, but you look at that time there might be one car in the house. Outside every house now, there's 2 or 3 cars.
Yeah.
So, like,
It's moved on and it's probably got better.
you just have to go forward, and that's it, like, simple as that.
Yeah. You were telling me when you started in Campbell's, the first mode of transport, and it was the same with a lot of fellas we talked to, was the push bike. And then when they started in the mines, it kind of graduated quickly to a Honda 50 or a Honda 70.
I bought a new Honda 50 and more after that.
Good man.
Yes.
Right. What sort of a machine was that?
Oh, it was a great machine. It was about 20 Honda 50s that were rigged at the time.
Yeah.
It was like the Hells Angels.
I remember as a young lad growing up, and on the Sundays you'd see all these Hondas going around.
Oh, sure, it was a retro to all the bikes. There was bikes at every house.
Yeah.
It was £120 that time.
For the Honda 50.
And the Honda 50.
Yeah. And they were the main mode of transport in the area.
Well, that was it. And there was the man I drew for me one time was Jimmy Guigan, Jimmy Guigan. And he was living above in Julius. And this man landed walking from Micheal. And he had a lot of blisters on his feet, and he put his feet into a basin of soft water to cool down his feet.
Right.
And he was going working to the mine. And Jimmy says, "Did you ever cut coal before, sir?" He says, "No, but I often cut rushes," he says.
Right. So there was a bit of a difference.
That's a bit of a difference, surely.
How did it get on? Because we heard stories about fellas that would have come in maybe from outside of the area that didn't know what they were going into. And some of them mightn't have lasted that well or that long, especially when they went into enclosed places. How did that man get on?
He got all right.
Yeah.
And there was another man that came down from Longford and married a girl from Drumshanba, Carmillis Q, you probably know him.
Yes.
And he was as good a miner as ever you seen.
Right. Tuck to it like a duck to water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
There must have been, Micheal, here that time when you started, and indeed all your time throughout the mines. There must have been great characters, and even at break times or whatever.
oh,
The stories must have been
there was,
unreal,
there
and the
was,
crack must have been good.
there was comical boys, I tell you now. There
Yeah.
was comical boys.
Any characters now, when you think back, would spring to mind straight away?
There were some of them fairly good, like Jerry Degnan and Gay Shearden and all them boys, like, and
Yeah,
the crack had shared about football, and
yeah,
we tried to rise Gay, but who was Gay was well fit to talk to them, I tell you.
yeah.
He knew the ins and outs of it all, like.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been the most forgiving place if Roscommon or St. Ronan's lost a game on a Sunday, maybe to come back in here on the Monday or Tuesday.
Oh,
and
no,
face
no,
into
no,
the
no.
panel of experts.
There'd be heads down and everything like that. They wouldn't be happy. But sure, look at
Yeah,
it's like everything else. You have to take the good with the bad, and that's it.
that's it. For those that come in here on tours, Micheal, and we have already spoke about how the roof gets an awful lot lower as you go in, and probably people can see in the background the water dripping here. And you could, you could be lying in a pool of water, cutting coal, shoveling out coal
yes.
all day. Was it ever a kind of a, when you wake up in the morning, you think about coming in and facing the conditions that you were facing at the time? Did you just have the attitude, well, let's get on with it, let's get the work done as quickly as we can, and let's get out?
So get the work done as quick as you could because, to be honest, there was nothing else for you.
Yeah. And interest rates
You
and everything
see,
was fairly high at that stage as well.
Exactly, because some men went for England and some men didn't, and
Yeah,
anyone that stayed at home had to stay there, and that was it. And
yeah.
the rest they got something else.
When the mines
You-
were in their heyday, Micheal, and if we go back maybe towards the 70s, 80s, right up until 1990, what was I suppose, the Rigna Valley like and the surrounding areas, maybe say the likes of Drumshambo? There were so many pubs, there were so many shops, it would have been a real hive of activity that
Oh,
time.
like sure, look at. I rigged them up to Shambo years back. When it was a quarterly pay.
Yeah,
All the wives was in town the
On
day
the
they got
Saturday.
paid. Yes.
yeah,
And like when you look around, and see all these places closed in different little towns and all that. So look at our little shop down the road there now, John's shop. He kept it open there for 52 years or something himself. And
yeah. And so many pubs, not alone in Drumshambo, but even
McCrann's
the
pub
likes
is closed.
yeah,
And,
Keith and Ballyfarnan as well. There was there was an awful lot of spin-off businesses off the mines where
Oh,
the
yeah.
money for the mines kept in going as
oh
well.
yeah, so there was 11 pubs in Ballyferrin at one time. There was 3 or 4 in Keija.
That's right.
There's only one on each of them now.
That's all. That's all. Changed completely.
Yes.
You, obviously, for people who would know you, said Ronan's Park in Arigna. And when the mines were in full swing that time, you would have had neighbours that would have walked in them as well. And again, that would have been a busy area with fellas coming and going for work every morning.
Oh yeah, sure looking forward to the weekend to go to the Mayfair. The Mayfair was going strong that time and into the Mayfair. That was the way night you got out.
That was more or less it. That was the night.
Oh yeah.
The rest of it was.
You like to drink then. You see, McFlynn was very strict. The man that had the pub down there, you weren't 18, you get no drink. And he had a man working there who was Sunday night, Mickey McGarter.
Yeah.
He had a little scooter, you might not remember them now.
Yeah,
He
no.
lived beyond Grea.
Yes.
He'd give you an odd pint like on the quiet.
Yeah. And that'll be.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that'll be it. Speaking of the pubs, what do your memories say of the Mondays when the day off came in on the Mondays? And we've heard a few stories already that it used to be a fairly good day down there in the local.
It was unreal. If you weren't there a good an area, you'd be out the door. It was wedged tight.
Yeah.
Mickey Goller, John Lynn, Paddy Wiley, all them men. Like, so they were great fucking people, like, great workers. And
Yeah. They played hard and the celebration and the let the hair down when need be.
oh yeah, and if you out Tuesday morning again, the very same as nothing happened, and Red Paddy winning them, and Red Paddy winning on the beer, he opened the door, you're sweating, close the door, you're sweating again.
That's what
Oh
it
yeah,
was.
great old characters like it. Yeah, but sure.
And they got on with it. When the mines ended, Micheal, and you moved on to different jobs in at different stages, did anything compare to I suppose, the camaraderie, the fun, the working conditions obviously would have been different. Did anything match the experience of being a miner?
Not really, because you moved on, like, and that was it, like, it was a different scene
Yeah.
altogether. Then a lot of-
1990,
yeah, then,
35 years almost now since
yeah,
it was.
yeah, and then a lot of, then after that, then you see a lot of the good miners and all that passed away.
Yeah.
And the younger generation now that's going to school and all that, no, they wouldn't. I don't think if the pit's open in the morning, I don't think you get anywhere to go into it.
That's something that's come up in a number of the interviews now, that if they were still on the go, obviously there'd be an awful lot, maybe more machines and mechanisation might have kicked in, but to get workers to come in and do the job that men like you done,
It could be hard, God.
yeah, will be hard, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The mining experience here, in many ways, it keeps alive the memories and the traditions and the practices that took place in the mines. As a former miner, how important is it that, you know, what you did, the contribution that you made, that's acknowledged and recognised? It's good, as presumed, to come back here and see
Well,
that.
it is being recognised because the mining experience here itself is recognised full time, big time.
Yeah,
And I worked in Killarney Castle for 8 years, and I sent a lot of coaches out here, and they'd come back for their dinner, and it was amazing. You know, they were from Florida, they were from America, they were from all over the world.
and when those tourists, as you mentioned, from America or Germany or wherever they be, when they came back to the castle, when you walked there, would many of them seek you out and ask you for your own experiences? I presume
That's
they
it.
were
The
fascinated.
first thing they say when they came back was, "I don't know how you could work in there."
They were in awe.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and they were very well. They were impressed with the whole thing, like, which it is. It is impressive. Like, it was a great thing that was done. Like, I know it took a lot of effort and money to get it up and running, but it's
Even now, and I know we spoke about your dad a few times, I presume, you know, from other miners, his name probably still comes up in conversation from time to time, and their experience.
oh
and
yeah,
their memories of
Jerry
it.
Dignan, if they were down at the pub now and there was a crack going on, my father name would come into it and that'd be that. Like,
Yeah.
Gilly, he'd start laughing and scratching his head, my father. Like, and
Yeah.
he was quiet, you know, he wouldn't say much, you know, he listened to everything.
He was quiet, but he was witty.
Oh, he was. Oh, he didn't even fit to answer, you know. Don't want to worry about that.
Yeah, he was able to
Yes,
hold his
yes,
own
yes,
on,
yes.
on that end of it. Well, look, Micheal, great to catch up with you this evening. Thanks for coming and sharing some of your memories from working here in the mines. And once again, a big thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Paul. Thank you.
I think of the life of the miner who must work all his day underground, where his lamplight is all that will shine there, and it's dark and it's damp all around. It is 2 or 3 miles to the coal face, and the tunnel is jagged and low, but he cannot find work on the surface, so it's down in the mines he must go.